Jay Monahan's getting off for a medical situation from the PGA Tour. The board is accepting his medical leave on the eve of the U.S. Open out in Los Angeles Country Club. First off, let us start by saying I hope everything is fine medically, health-wise, with Jay Monahan. This has the feel of the excuse as to why he's not at the U.S. Open. Let me just, that's my first reaction to it, just being honest, because they're not disclosing what's going on. Again, I hope everything's fine. But if it is, I'm still going to point out the fact that, well, there's a lot of controversy going into the U.S. Open with players that don't like the guy, they don't trust the guy, the head of the PGA Tour, and all of a sudden, after doing a couple of interviews, CNBC, Golf Channel, and maybe one other, all of a sudden, medically, he's on a health issue, has him on medical leave. Chad, this has the vibe of Urban Meyer at Florida. With all of it, the roster wasn't up to par to where it was, and within a matter of a season, all of a sudden, he's the head coach at Ohio State. I'm not saying Jay Monahan is automatically getting another gig somewhere, but you have two people now filling in for him that are stepping up and handling the day-to-day operations of the PGA Tour, and specifically this week at the U.S. Open. And by and large, they're not going to handle any of the criticism or discussion about the merger/partnership/unification with LIV, because Jay Monahan fell on the sword along with the board, who also won't be answering a lot of questions out there. They'll just accept his medical situation for what it is and say he's taking a leave of absence. Am I wrong for just automatically thinking that this is the cop-out excuse as to why he will leave the PGA Tour instead of either resigning or being asked to step down after everything that took place? The players want him gone. A lot of the players are calling for his resignation last week.
You are not wrong. I don't wish physical problems, obviously, on anyone. But, man, this is convenient timing. If you were ever going to have a medical problem or medical condition arise, this is really convenient timing for Jay Monahan to have that happen. Now, again, I echo what Hutton said. If there's something truly wrong, we're all obviously wishing him the best and don't want that at all. But it does have an Urban Meyer type feel to it of this seems like really good timing to try to plan the next step, whatever that may be. Now, we've also heard from guests on this show that know the alliance or whatever they're calling it now, that know it pretty well, that believe that he has insulated himself really well in the writing of this contract, that he can't be ousted, even if everybody wants him ousted. And I'm talking about Monahan, and I'm sure there's some sort of financial package with the private investment fund that's going to make him financially secure for the rest of his life, and probably his entire family will be financially secure for the rest of their life. So, add all that up, maybe it's real, but it does feel convenient that this is happening right now with him, given the national discourse with Jay Monahan and PGA. And not just from a moral standpoint, it's from the hypocritical place of everything he said a year ago versus what he's done the last 7 weeks, which is negotiate with a group that he has described as evil.
Speaking of Flag Day, he's waving the flag in response to those that were staying with the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Preaching loyalty and respect and honor versus taking blood money.
And he's waving the Saudi flag today.
Yeah, well, he did last week, too, in a joint interview on CNBC with the LIV leaders, the Saudi-backed LIV Tour. Look, I don't blame the players for taking the money. I don't if they're in dire straits and they saw the writing on the wall, I don't blame the PGA Tour for what they did. I just look at the way they handled this over the last 12 months and think, how can you do an about-face based on what you were pointing to and what you were thumping? That to me is where everything comes down to just absolute BS with Jay Monahan and the PR approach that they took versus preaching unity and unification of the two, now 3 golf leagues that were included in last week's report, and now we see if they have the framework of that deal done. We'll see if it actually gets done. But after facing the criticism admitting he understands why people are going to call him a hypocrite, and hearing from John Rahm yesterday saying that, the PGA Tour, paraphrasing, stabbed them in the back. Players feel like they were not just disrespected, but dishonored in many ways. I think it's very convenient, but also it puts him out of the spotlight, and it puts the spotlight back on the game of golf, which will take place and tee off starting tomorrow out in Los Angeles. I will also, this is another thing that crossed my mind late last night and thinking about this story. We had George Savarikas on earlier this week, and I asked him, Los Angeles Country Club, the scene set at the end of that chat with him, and they're in Beverly Hills, they're right on the mountain there, and you think about the hills of Los Angeles and the backdrop, and what took so long for the U.S. Open to go there, to allow the Los Angeles Country Club to host. It was actually on the L.A. Country Club, not the other way around, because they want to keep things private. They don't want the big-time spotlight. They don't want people taking over and snooping around. I get it. But on the 1 year where they were like, yeah, well, you know what, let's do this. Turns out the entire sporting world is zeroed in on the legality and just, the decency of what the PGA Tour is standing for based on what they were preaching over the last 12 months. And the guy that was doing it isn't present as the media descends on this tournament.
I said it last week. If I were Jay Monahan, I would have gone to the podium or done this interview and in this address to everyone would have said, judge me 10 years from now on this. I did what I had to. I did what was right financially and for the future of the PGA Tour. And in doing that, I understand I cannot have the respect or trust of the PGA Tour board members or the players anymore. So I also tender my resignation at this point as part of the deal.
He may not be able
know that I shepherded in something that's going to help them. You're right. They may have had a deal that he has to be there in the interim as they make this deal happen.
But keep in mind, those on the PGA Tour's board of directors.
They did it too.
There were 2 or 3 others in the background of this negotiating this. They are also complicit. They're also a part of the voting structure. So there are 5 votes. You have Al Rahmanian, who has 2 of the 5 votes. The PGA Tour was pushing that they have 3 of the 5 votes. They have voting power. But if you really think about it, Jay Monahan's going to vote the way that the Saudis want him to vote. So they have the voting power too. And they are the sole investor now in the PGA Tour for the billions that they'll pump in to whatever's necessary in order to make this merger happen. They're in control. They bought the game of golf effectively. And the voice, the figurehead in Jay Monahan is no longer present in order to answer and face the wrath of what's going on. In fact, the guys that are taking over, they likely found out the same time that Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods found out, right? And now they're involved in all of this too. They were already involved, but now they're answering questions for which of things they can't answer. And that's the unfortunate part, and why, again, I'm sure he's facing a lot of stress and anxiety, and that would certainly come with the territory. But to announce this a week after the big announcement happened on June 6th and do it on the Wednesday prior to the teeing off for the U.S. Open, that bugs me a little bit. That immediately makes me raise an eyebrow.